Hey guys, welcome back to Tech 215. I'm your host Nick, and this is going to be episode number 2 of my monthly ultra budget build series where we build awesome computers super cheap, flip them, and then build something better. If you guys have not seen episode 1 yet, I will leave a link in the description down below. You should go check that video out now so you're all caught up and you don't miss a thing. But last month on the show, we spent a total budget of $258 building that machine. I was then able to flip it within a week for $300 total, giving us a net profit of 42 bucks. But now this month we have a $300 budget. And guys, sitting on my desk behind me is this month's ultra budget build. But before we get into that, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Ring that bell so you don't miss a thing, because we have plenty of awesome tech content coming your way real soon. Okay guys, so now it's finally time to get into this month's ultra budget build, and I want to show you guys the stock configuration of the computer when I got it, all the cool hardware upgrades and case modifications we put into this build, and then I want to do some benchmarks. We're going to run some synthetic benchmarks as well as run the full gambit of games that we usually run around here. So without any further ado, let's get into this month's ultra budget build. So I picked up today's ultra budget build from my buddy John at Aston Pawn for a total of 220 bucks. It came equipped with the i7 2700K, a GTX 780, 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, a Creative Sound Blaster Core D, and it's all sitting on a Z77 Extreme motherboard from ASRock inside a beautiful case from Fractal Design. It also came with 2 older mechanical hard drives, both 500 gigabytes apiece. This case already features 4 120mm white fans, 2 from Fractal and 2 from Thermaltake, so getting this build to look good was not going to be a problem. The problem was some of the aging hardware. Since the motherboard and CPU have the ability to overclock, I wanted to really push the older i7 to its limits, so upgrading to a decent tower cooler was a high priority. Also, getting an SSD as a primary boot drive was also on the list, along with upgrading the decent but aging GTX 780. But since we only had 80 bucks left in our budget, we had no other option but to get creative and sell some of the things in the machine to increase our budget. So I went on eBay and sold the GTX 780 for 60 bucks and the Creative Sound Blaster for 39. That then put us in really good shape to do some much needed hardware upgrades. First, I picked up a Deepcool Gamex GT Tower Cooler, which performs and looks amazing for 35 bucks brand new off Amazon. So now we can overclock the snot out of our 2700K. Second, I found a really nice used Samsung Evo 850 240GB SSD for 30 bucks off Craigslist. Once again, we'll be using the RX 570 4GB model for our GPU, but in this month's build, we'll be using the ROG Strix model, which is one of the fastest RX 570s released. We picked this up for an absolute steal at $71 off eBay. And with the remainder of our really stretched budget, we picked up 2 green ZR Darkstorm dual blade fans from Ego for 20 bucks each off eBay, along with 1 single green Cooler Master Sickle Flow fan for our rear exhaust. And finally, we added a Silverstone 8-in-1 fan header to manage all the multiple fans for the case. As far as mods go, we decided to paint the RAM heatsinks green to go with our green and gray motif, and we also created this really slick ROG Strix GPU backplate to round out the build. Before we get into the benchmarks, here's a quick hardware recap just in case you're keeping score at home. Okay, so on to the benchmarks, and this is where we're going to see if this month's build performs better than last month's. First up is Cinebench R15, and since both builds are basically using the same GPU, the FPS scores are very similar as the KB Lake Pentium squeaks out a 2-frame victory, but since we've doubled our core and thread count, the i7 almost doubles up the dual-core chip in the tile test, and that was to be expected. In Unigine Heaven, it was once again a really close race, but the i7 gets the first down by a few inches in FPS and also in total score. Although the core count and clock speed are higher on the i7, the Pentium G4620 does have the advantage of using newer and faster DDR4, which can be a huge factor when benchmarking. So now on to our usual gambit of games, and first up we have Battlefield 5, and our Sandy Bridge i7 clocked at 4.6 GHz, averaged 60 FPS on Battlefield 5. Last month's Pentium won this battle by a shocking 13%. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is next on our list, and the Unreal Engine favored the Dimebag dual-core by only 6% over the i7 2700K. The game was substantially smoother though, with higher minimal frame rates and 1% lows on the i7. Apex Legends is the only title in today's game that ran better on the Sandy Bridge Flagship, averaging a whopping 70 FPS on high details. The i7 won this round by 20% over the Pentium G4620, and again had immensely better minimal and 1% lows. And finally, Fortnite. The Pentium G4620 won this by a 7% margin, but the i7 clearly was a smoother experience. Again guys, I don't know about you, but I would much rather have a smooth, steady experience all day than frame rates jumping all over the place. Straight up, I would prefer the i7 2700K over the dual-core Pentium G4620, but the one thing the Pentium had over the i7 was a much better upgrade path. Alright guys, that has been this month's episode of Ultra Budget Builds, and the PC behind me, where'd it go? That's right guys, I sold this machine in record time. It didn't last more than 2 days on Facebook Marketplace. And that's some really good news for the channel because I ended up selling this build for $375, so now we finally have enough buying power to buy something a little bit more modern rather than building these older builds. And I think you guys know the direction I'm headed in. I mean, we're going to do our absolute best next month to build a newer AMD system. I think we have it in us with the budget. I think it's going to turn out really well. So it's conclusion time now guys, and which build was better, the Pentium G4620 from January or the i7 2700K from February? In my opinion, if I could only pick one chip without no upgrade path, I would still take the i7 2700K because I personally do more than just play games on a computer, and I think having more cores and more threads for other applications, that would definitely help. But if this PC was just for gaming and I could actually upgrade down the road, having that upgrade headroom and also being able to use DDR4 memory is such a huge advantage. I was actually shocked in the benchmarks when we saw that a 2-core 4-threaded chip was faster than a 4-core 8-threaded chip. The 4620 is about 5 years newer than the i7 2700K, so that is to be expected. But that about does it for me guys. Thanks so much again for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Ring that bell so you get notified the second I drop a new video, and also toss a like on it and comment down below. I'm curious what you guys think of this month's Ultra Budget Build episode. And coming up, we have some pretty good content. I picked up one of these Ryzen 3 3200Gs. I'm going to be doing a full review on this, and is it worth it? And also, I'm going to be building a new editing rig, so I picked up one of these Ryzen 7 3800X. Nothing special. But that about does it for me today, guys. I should be back in about a week with more tech content. Peace!